It's about our children. I commend this bill to the House.
Speaker.
I call the honourable member Andrew Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll take a call on behalf of New Zealand First. We have been looking at this bill last night and now again today on Saturday, and we're coming to the end. And I would like to add the views of New Zealand First, which, as always, are the common sense views, the level-headed views, and the views of what I believe the majority of New Zealanders would wish to see in this House, because we've heard opinions and viewpoints from all extremities, but at the end of the day, a great deal of it is a lot of red herrings and a lot of diversions away from the fact that New Zealand is fortunate to be sitting on a very significant resource. For a population of 4.5 million people, we are in a very, very fortunate place in the world to have an enormous resource and an enormous potential there, which, if you ask most New Zealanders, we certainly cannot just ignore. We must take the opportunities we are given and look at those opportunities in a very sensible, sustainable, responsible way. And it must be done, and we all agree, and every New Zealander would not wish for the environment to be in any way damaged, would not wish for us to put our jewel in the crown, our wonderful environment, at risk. But at the same time, if it's done sensibly and responsibly, there is enormous potential to improve the wealth and prosperity and the well-being of all New Zealanders as a result. And in this regard, New Zealand First has supported this bill in most areas of it, but we did, you will note, vote against one aspect, and that was the aspect in relation to protest on the high seas. And that is one area where New Zealand First cannot agree with the government, because we do believe still in the freedom to protest, and we could not, in our own conscience, vote for something which would take away the right of New Zealanders. And I've mentioned in this House in the past how we could recall the frigates, the Otago and the Taranaki, going off to, was it the Taranaki? I think it was, yes, it was the Taranaki, going off to Mururoa Atoll, being sent by our government to protest on the high seas about atmospheric testing in French Polynesia, and our government sent those vessels. And likewise, I can remember when the Haddo was coming up the harbour in Auckland, and New Zealanders were out there protesting. And so we are a nation of free protest, and we do respect that. So New Zealand First could not go along with that part of this bill, because we still believe in the right of New Zealanders to go anywhere, long as they're keeping to in a lawful manner. But to protest is their inherent right, and that's why on the walls of this chamber we have the battles, and many great battles that New Zealanders have given their lives for, Passchendaele, Messines, in Egypt, Gallipoli, and so therefore we do uphold the right of people to defend the rights of their country, but also to defend the rights of freedom of speech. But, Mr. Speaker, back onto the Crown Minerals, and we do agree that there were some significant errors in the original legislation that needed rectifying. This legislation was put down to come to be enacted on the 24th of May next week. It was then found that there were some errors in the original drafting, which, if they were not sorted out with this amendment bill, in fact, next week it would cause some real complications in terms of enacting the original Act. And it was simple. And the main premise of this whole bill, the big one, was the fact that the Tier 1 applicants potentially would not be able to operate after 24th of May if this amendment was not put through, because they are not always necessarily the final company that does the exploration, the drilling, the actual mining, or whatever it is. Often they are scout companies, they are as I mentioned in the House last night, they are the forerunners who go out, look at the opportunities, look at the potential of the resource, do the research, do the initial exploration, do the initial fact-finding to see if there is actually something there to take forward. And if they do establish that, then often that's when other major international investors and indeed New Zealand investors would get involved and perhaps take it to the next stage. And they were going to be excluded under the original Act, and it could have meant that many operators in New Zealand could literally have had to cease operations because they would have found that they were not compliant with the original Act. That would have been an unacceptable situation. That would have potentially cost jobs in this country. That would have potentially cost investment in this country, and that would not be a good thing. New Zealand First would not condone doing something which would result in New Zealanders potentially losing work, losing opportunities and losing jobs. That would not be a good thing. So, Mr Speaker, we do support it from that respect. But as I mentioned in the House last night, our support is contingent also on, hopefully in the future, there being a review in other areas of this whole minerals and resource taking within New Zealand. We firmly believe, New Zealand First, that for the country to truly prosper from the taking of minerals from both onshore and offshore, that all New Zealanders must benefit from it. And in particular, we believe where New Zealanders and where regions and where provinces are particularly affected by the taking of those resources and taking of those minerals, that they in turn should receive a significant amount of the benefit back. The Crown should not just take the royalties and they should not just disappear into a big black hole in Wellington just to be used to pay for other activities of government and to prop up other areas of government. They should actually be returned to where the minerals are taken from. And in that respect, New Zealand First has put out a policy in the last month or so where we would, if we had the opportunity to have influence over this, ensure that 25% of the royalties taken by the Crown for the minerals from the source where they're taken, 25% of those royalties would be returned back to the region, back to the province from where they were taken. And that would help those regions underwrite and pay for some of the infrastructure, such as roading, such as local infrastructure, such as good facilities for their communities, amenities for their communities, to in some way offset their own costs, but also to compensate them for some of the downside of the effects of mining or minerals or exploration or drilling in their particular regions. We think it's a win-win. We've had extremely good feedback from around New Zealand on this. We think it's a positive thing. We think New Zealanders would get on board, and we actually think that to take New Zealanders with us, to take New Zealanders forward and see a benefit in exploration, to see a benefit in mining, to see a benefit in taking mineral resources from our wonderful country, that all New Zealanders should benefit, and New Zealand First would certainly ensure that that was the case. So, Mr Speaker, just in closing, New Zealand First will be supporting this bill. We do believe in jobs, we do believe in employment, and we do believe in taking this country forward.
I call the Honourable Member Kemuljit Bakshi. Sat Sri Akal.
Sat Sri Akal, Mr Speaker, and thank you for the opportunity.